You know, everyone dreams of a perfect society. But what if artificial intelligence actually pulls it off? Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a fascinating and, honestly, kind of terrifying dilemma that could literally define the future of human civilization. Think about it. What actually happens when we hand over the keys to a flawless world? Let's get right into it.
I want you to imagine a future with absolutely no crime, no poverty, no corruption, and zero conflict. Why? Because every single aspect of life is managed by a super smart AI. Life becomes incredibly safe and hyper-efficient. At first glance, it sounds like absolute paradise, right? But here's the catch. What is the hidden cost of all this ultimate safety? If AI creates this perfect society, is that perfection actually worth losing your freedom, your individuality, and your personal choices?
To understand why we'd even consider handing the reins over to machines, we really have to look at what's called the human problem. Let's be totally honest here. For thousands of years, human society has been a bit of a mess. We're driven by emotions, greed, and some pretty irrational fears. We're the species that panic buys toilet paper instead of perfectly allocating our resources. We panic, we fight, we build corrupt systems, and we create these massive inefficiencies. But AI doesn't panic. It doesn't get emotional or intentionally biased. It just relentlessly finds the absolute most efficient path forward.
So what if AI actually fixes all our deep-seated flaws by pushing us into a post-scarcity era? Well, some thinkers believe this could lead to what author Aaron Bastani famously calls fully automated luxury communism. I know, it's a wild phrase. Basically, it's this theoretical, post-capitalist society where advanced AI literally eliminates material scarcity. Just imagine a world of total, universal abundance, where the traditional, everyday struggle to survive and capitalism as we currently know it just completely vanishes. Poof.
Now, Bastani points to 5 specific technological drivers that could actually make this wild abundance a reality. We're talking about full-blown automation entirely replacing human labor. We've got limitless power coming from renewable and quantum energy. Then there's mining the sky, literally pulling endless raw materials from space. Plus, editing our very genetic destiny with CRISPR to wipe out inherited diseases and producing virtually unlimited food through cellular agriculture, so no animals are required. Put all that together, and it theoretically completely uncouples our basic survival from our daily labor. It's a total game changer.
But as you might expect, society is deeply torn on how to handle these massive impending changes. If you actually map out the public discourse, just looking at AI news headlines, you see these two intensely dense, polarized clusters. On one side, you have the radiant, glowing hope of an AI utopia, curing cancer, democratizing all human knowledge, and supercharging the economy. But right across from it, a tangled, highly anxious web of dystopian fear. We're talking fears of mass surveillance, total job loss, and essentially a complete loss of human control of our own destiny.
And this polarization sets up a really stark contrast between two entirely different futures. On the one hand, we've got physicist Max Tegmark's concept of a benevolent dictator AI. This is basically a curated utopia where a superintelligence manages the entire world so perfectly that life just feels like Christmas 365 days a year. It's like an all-inclusive, never-ending pleasure cruise. But on the flip side, we face the grim reality of algorithmic control. Because achieving that flawless safety, it might just require total, constant behavioral surveillance and the absolute loss of our personal freedom.
And hey, we don't even have to look to sci-fi movies to see this algorithmic control in action. We already have real-world examples happening right now. Take the Siri algorithm over in the Netherlands. The government deployed this system to efficiently detect citizens who are at high risk for welfare fraud. But in its cold, calculating pursuit of total efficiency, it quietly flagged thousands of innocent people, severely eroding their privacy and civil rights. Ultimately, a district court had to step in and shut the whole thing down. So yeah, efficiency, as it turns out, can have a very, very dark side.
This relentless, almost obsessive drive for ultimate frictionless efficiency is actually pushing us toward what researchers are now calling the infinity economy. This is a wild concept. It's a system where wealth creation, value distribution, and production are totally decoupled from human labor. The machines build, they design, and they manage absolutely everything, creating this self-sustaining loop of abundance while we humans are, well, entirely removed from the equation.
Which brings us to a massively profound philosophical hurdle. The classical philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer hit the nail on the head a long time ago when he noted that in a world with the total absence of pain, boredom will simply deaden us and make us suffer in entirely new ways. Think about that for a second. If a system is flawlessly optimized to eliminate every single one of our struggles, it might accidentally eliminate our drive right along with it. leaving us with a crushing, unbearable boredom that basically just replaces our previous pain.
So we really have to ask ourselves a fundamental question here. If a super smart AI swoops in and solves literally every single problem we have, from fixing climate change to curing the common cold, we have to confront what happens to human ambition, what happens to our underlying purpose. Because let's face it, so much of human meaning and our very identity comes from that fundamental desire to overcome difficulty, to strive for something, and to achieve it. So does a world entirely without suffering also just become a world entirely without meaning?
Philosopher Nick Bostrom warns us that we're essentially staring down two distinct traps here. First, we might end up in what he calls a deep utopia. This is kind of a plastic, artificial reality where we're nothing more than passive consumers of synthesized satisfaction, totally lacking any real purpose. Or we face an arguably much bleaker scenario, a flawlessly optimized world that places zero value on sentient life whatsoever. It creates a completely hollow reality that Bostrom perfectly describes as feeling exactly like a Disneyland without children.
To avoid sleepwalking into this hollow world, we've got to fundamentally rethink how we integrate AI into our actual lives. Social innovator Glenn Whale warns us not to be seduced by the siren song of pure economic distribution. Now, I get it. It sounds incredibly tempting to just let AI run the global economy while we all sit on a beach somewhere collecting universal basic income. But here's the reality. Simply cashing a paycheck from a machine absolutely does not fulfill our deep, fundamental human need to actively participate and actually matter in society.
Interestingly enough, internet pioneer J.C.R. Licklider warned us about this exact thing decades ago. He argued that it's not nearly enough for technology to simply serve the public interest. Instead, it must serve the interest of a public that actually has a voice. Passive income is just not enough. We as humans must retain our dignity, our agency, and an active, meaningful role in shaping our own future.
Okay, so how do we actually navigate this? How do we avoid the trap of a perfect yet totally meaningless society? Well, we need to take a pragmatic, middle-of-the-road path towards something called a protopia. Think of it as a state of gradual, intentional, and optimistic improvement. To build it, there are 3 steps. First, we absolutely must reject the pure utopia versus dystopia binary. It's not black and white. Second, we need to implement pluralistic AI governance, meaning power and control are widely distributed, not hoarded by a few centralized hubs. And third, we must intentionally design what's known as human-enhancing AI, or HAI for short.
Now, this human-enhancing AI framework focuses super heavily on safeguarding our agency. In practical terms, this means requiring independent ethical audits, strictly enforcing pluralistic decision-making, and actively distributing data ownership so that a few massive tech entities don't hold all the cards. We absolutely have to keep humans in the loop for critical, life-altering decisions, and we must prioritize human dignity way above mere algorithmic efficiency. The goal here is that technology must amplify our human potential rather than acting as some sort of digital dictator.
Which brings us right back to our ultimate question. I'm going to leave you with this really provocative thought to chew on. In order to maintain this flawless utopian world we've been talking about, humans might actually have to strictly follow AI's rules. So I ask you, would you honestly trade your freedom, your daily struggles, and your messy human imperfections for a flawlessly safe, perfectly efficient, but completely controlled society? Take a minute, think about it, and let that question guide how you view the absolutely incredible technology being